Now, this is our first enterprise webinar for JIRA, and we're going to be doing one of these every 6 months for JIRA Enterprise customers from here on out, specifically to talk about new developments in JIRA that impact enterprise customers. So while there are always a lot of new features in each of our JIRA releases, we basically won't be covering all of those new features in JIRA. We'll be focusing on the improvements that we're making specifically for our enterprise customers. And so for this webinar, since our JIRA Enterprise offering just launched in February, we wanted to make this first webinar open to all JIRA customers. So we actually have several hundred folks joining us this morning, and in the future we'll make these webinars available to JIRA Enterprise customers only. So today I actually want to cover 3 main topics. First, I want to give you an update on our enterprise offering. And next, I want to talk about some of our specific efforts on scaling JIRA and some data we want to share you about performance in JIRA 5.1, as well as some data from surveying many of our customers. And finally, I want to talk about some new plugins and some coming attractions of new features that you'll see in JIRA releases in the future. And for those of you who attended either Atlassian Unite in Europe or Atlassian Summit in San Francisco, or who've seen some of that content online, you'll see some familiar content here, but there's a lot of new information and updates as well. Now, for legal reasons, I'm always required to include the disclaimer that none of the future features that we talk about today represent commitments around feature specifics, version numbers, or release dates. But this is a great chance for us to get to share some of the future-looking information with you. And we are recording this webinar, and we'll make it available, so there's no need to take screenshots or write every word down. And feel free to enter questions during this session, because we'll have some Q&A time at the end, and we can always try and follow up with you afterwards as well too. So let's kick it off. And actually, we've got a number of poll questions throughout our webinar today. And so our first one, just because we want to gauge how many people have seen some of our recent content, is have you seen the JIRA State of the Union presentation from this year's Atlassian Summit? So we just want to get a little gauge of how many of you have actually seen that content, so we know how many folks have seen there. So if everyone can click it in, we'll typically try to only leave these up for about 30 seconds so that we keep moving along with the content in the presentation. So just key in your votes, and we'll have a great idea for. You guys are fast voters. The votes are flying in. Thanks a lot. This is excellent. Ken, do we want to close the voting and move on? Fantastic. So it looks like a vast majority of you have not seen either this presentation live at Summit, or I should say elements of this presentation live at Summit. We're going to cover a lot of new ground as well, so we'll just jump into the content from here. All right. So one of our biggest areas of feedback from 12 months ago was actually that enterprises using Atlassian tools, they really wanted more from Atlassian in a number of areas. I know I talked to a lot of customers at Summit last year who said their number one challenge was, how is Atlassian addressing enterprises, and what is Atlassian doing to extend our offerings for enterprises? And for a long time, we've been asked by enterprise customers for more offerings to meet their needs. Things like better support via phone and really at any time. They didn't want just limited to business hours, and more training, both for end users and administrators, and overall just higher levels of engagement. And so we actually introduced our Atlassian Enterprise offering this February, starting with JIRA. But while the introduction of enterprise offerings at Atlassian is new, enterprises have actually been using JIRA for a long time. And here, we basically show that about 44 out of the Fortune 50 actually use JIRA, and in fact, 9 out of the top 10 enterprises, or sorry, 9 out of the top 10 largest companies in the world use JIRA. And we kind of have an internal joke that we wonder what's wrong with ConocoPhillips, and we need to find out how we get JIRA into there as well, so we get 10 out of 10. Now, all of this actually occurred without an Atlassian sales team, which we're excited about because that means enterprises. And in fact, so many enterprises use Atlassian, it's no longer really a well-kept secret. Atlassian was recently named one of the leaders in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for application lifecycle management. So we're obviously excited about that. So let's actually talk specifically about JIRA Enterprise and what is JIRA Enterprise. So as I mentioned, we launched this with JIRA 5 in February, and it came out of the gate and included 24/7 online support and phone support. It included JIRA training through Atlassian University. It included our free JIRA administrator course and exam. and membership to the enterprise customer community. Now, of course, we've been adding enterprise features to JIRA for a long time, but with much more of a focus starting around JIRA 4.3. Now, Summit, we actually announced the dates for our first JIRA admin course, which is going to be held in San Francisco on October 1st. And for every JIRA Enterprise customer, your technical contact will actually receive an email with more details on how to register for this course. And of course, you'll see us blogging about it as well. Our first enterprise webinar, well, you're listening to it right now. But as we mentioned when we first launched Enterprise, we would continue to improve it. And so we're excited to announce that really just 5 months later, we've added a great deal to the offering. So it also now includes, for every enterprise customer, we're building an enterprise customer profile for your instances. So our enterprise support team knows more about your instances and the plugins on your instance, and they understand more of the context of a ticket that you may have just submitted. Now, all of the JIRA Enterprise customers should have already received your survey for your instance profiles to collect that key information, like vital plugins, sort of your general application environment, what database you run, and things like that. Again, so our support team will know more about your instance or instances, and will be able to respond with more knowledge of your environment. We also launched our first set of enterprise guides at Summit in June, and we'll talk more about those today. And actually coming soon, I'm pretty excited about this, is going to be, we're starting a set of enterprise workshops, which will be on specific topics like JIRA workflows, Agile at scale, reindexing, and this is basically a way that our enterprise customers and experts can join and interact with our expert speakers. And we've also launched in our community area a Google group for all JIRA Enterprise customers as a chat forum. And of course, one of the biggest things in the feature area is the performance and scaling improvements delivered in JIRA 5.1, which was our first release since the announcement of Enterprise. You know, but the Enterprise initiative at Atlassian actually goes beyond just this offering. So as a company now, we have dedicated teams who have enterprise customers as their focus. So we have dedicated enterprise support people. So that means that they spend their time working exclusively on enterprise support cases. And so that means you get someone familiar with someone who has been working with enterprise, whether it's to scale or whether it's to set up directory servers, the types of typical challenges that enterprises have, and the types of questions they commonly have. And also we've introduced a performance engineering team across Atlassian. So we've always had individual engineers who worked on performance within each product, but we now have a dedicated enterprise development team inside of JIRA, and we have a cross-company performance engineering team. And we absolutely believe this is a key part of our enterprise investment. So you can see that we're working really hard to make our enterprise offerings fit the needs of really large organizations. And now a lot of teams at Atlassian are specifically dedicated to enterprise needs. I guess as a bit of a, let's call it an insider view at Atlassian, I think you can always tell a company's priorities by what people are dedicated to or what people spend their time on. Inside of Atlassian, there are now a large number of teams who are dedicated to our enterprise offerings. And this actually wasn't the case a year ago. And to me, this represents, I think, the clearest picture of how serious Atlassian is about the enterprise. And we're going to continue to do more. So you're going to see more and more enterprise features in JIRA, as I mentioned, just like we've been adding since JIRA 4.3, where we started with LDAP support and application links and a host of other features. And you're going to see more of that from us in the future, including things like expanding what our enterprise offering contains and providing an enterprise offering for other Atlassian products. So Confluence is actually the next product we plan to add into Atlassian Enterprise, and with Stash to follow that. And you'll see us introducing new products and add-ons that are actually specifically targeted to enterprise needs. So while we've done a lot already, I have to keep reminding myself that the enterprise offering is not even half a year old yet. It's grown quickly, and a lot of the new investments that we've made have already been visible in releases like JIRA 5.1. So I mentioned our enterprise guides before, and a big part of our enterprise program is making more information available for enterprises. So we announced at Summit those JIRA Enterprise Guides, and they're at this shortened URL, which is atlss.in/we go big. So these guides include a number of things, which are things like an overall approach to JIRA Scale, a guide on tuning garbage collection. There's one on tuning database connections, as well as best practices on creating a staging server and failover. And we actually also recently updated our documentation on the JIRA database schema, and we've done it in a way that will now automatically keep it current with each release. And this is because a lot of enterprises have actually started to apply data warehousing and business intelligence solutions to all the great data that's collected inside of JIRA, so we want to keep that current. And there's actually many more to come. So check out our enterprise resources, because they also have things like our testing tools, our knowledge base articles, and common answers from answers.atlassian.com that we think will help enterprise customers. So definitely check out this page, add yourself as a watcher so that any new guides or updates we make, you'll know about them as soon as we publish them. So there's actually more information on Enterprise on the Enterprise Fact, and of course, don't hesitate to contact us if you have any questions, whether you're a JIRA Enterprise customer or you just have questions on JIRA Enterprise. If you're not currently an Atlassian Enterprise customer and you'd like to upgrade, as always, you can do that online through myatlassian.com. All right, so it's time for our second poll question. We're trying to get an idea of what people think of when they think of scale, given that our next section is actually going to discuss scale. So for your organization, for your JIRA instances, what are the most important dimensions of scale? So what are the areas that you either see growth in your organization or see growth in your JIRA instances that is sort of top of mind for you when you think about, wow, JIRA is really growing or scaling in this particular direction? What's the metric, or what are the most important metrics that that you see in your organization? And we'll leave this open for a few more seconds here as all the votes come in. And as always, even though we are in international waters and this is across multiple geographies, please no wagering on the outcomes of the poll questions. Great. So let's take a look at our poll results, and we'll share those results with everybody. So as you can see, it actually looks like issues is the top voted one, with projects coming right after it, and then kind of an even split between issue types, fields, and users, with looks like a few people, they think about workflows, but about a third of folks consider workflows, but the others don't consider that as a top area. Well, that's a great lead into to our next conversation, which is around really scale and performance in JIRA. So what affects performance in JIRA, and what have we done on performance recently? For many of you, you're looking at a lot of these different items and wondering how JIRA scales, and it's probably because JIRA has been expanding across your organization. Your number of users and issues and projects, workflows, all these sorts of things are growing quickly. And in JIRA, kind of like our poll results, you see that people often think about scale in terms of issues or in terms of projects or in terms of users. And 50,000 issues is actually quite common in JIRA, and actually now 200,000 issues is quite common. But prior to JIRA 5.1, we actually recommended that customers split instances at 200,000 issues. But even before we released 5.1, clearly we had customers who'd scaled JIRA far, far beyond 200,000 issues, and there were customers who'd scaled JIRA up to and beyond 1 million issues. But scale for JIRA isn't just about issues, there are other factors. Now, we reached out to about 50 customers, each of whom had over 200,000 issues in their JIRA instances, to understand how big their instances are in a number of other dimensions other than issues. And the results are pretty surprising. We found one customer which had over 400 different statuses in JIRA, and another one with 700 issue types. We had another customer with 1,100 unique projects in one JIRA instance, one instance with over 3 million comments. And my personal favorite is one with 2,700 unique custom fields. And that turns out that's about 3% of all the nouns in the English language. So that's a lot of custom fields. And another customer we found with 4,500 groups and a few with over 100,000 users for their JIRA instance. So this would sort of tell you, hey, JIRA can scale. But we know that it's not without challenges, and that's one of the reasons we wanted to address this in JIRA 5.1. So we collected this data specifically because of that. We wanted a really accurate picture of all of your environments, of our customers' largest environments, so we could really improve performance based on our customers' profiles, so we would solve the specific scale challenges that you're encountering. And we wanted to be able to also use this to give you guidance on how you can scale JIRA. So we actually put JIRA to the test from configurations ranging from 100,000 all the way up to 1 million issues. And we actually used the results of those tests to focus our performance improvements. And with JIRA 5.1, we've drastically improved JIRA's performance. So we've increased throughput by over 40%, which was a huge leap over JIRA 4.4. And these same improvements actually allow a customer to scale their JIRA instance farther than before. So looking specifically at the number of issues, here the same hardware that's running the same JIRA configuration essentially handled 2.5 times as many issues on JIRA 5.1. So here we have a 200,000 issue JIRA 4.4 instance versus a 500,000 issue JIRA 5.1 instance, and they essentially performed at the same level in terms of response time. And so we're really excited about that impact. And we saw this result essentially at every size for a JIRA instance. So JIRA 5.1 ran consistently better for instances with from 100,000 issues all the way up to 1 million, essentially every point in the curve that we tested. And so the main impact that from the performance engineering team and the dedicated enterprise teams that we put together really is the great improvement that you saw in performance and scale in JIRA 5.1. Now to dive a level deeper, these performance increases actually don't require more resources. So in fact, we actually achieved that higher throughput while using less resources. So the tests here show that on this same production data set of 200,000 issues, running our benchmarking tests, where we actually achieved that 40% higher throughput. At the same time, overall memory usage by JIRA 5.1 is lower, and JIRA spends less time garbage collecting. So at Summit, as a result, we introduced the end of our recommendation to limit JIRA instances to 200,000 issues. But rather than just give you a new number, as there are customers who are running instances up to and above 1 million issues, we actually want to give you more of the information and tools to help you determine the right size and scale for your own JIRA instance, and more examples of specific JIRA configurations and how they scale. So speaking of an example, here's actually a really recent example that we've run inside of JIRA on 5.1. And here's an instance with about 400,000 issues. It's got about 500 projects, 600 custom fields. And every action came in under 2.5 seconds in terms of response time, with the one exception here. You'll see the long bar on the chart, which was viewing activity streams, which can be pulling information from multiple applications and aggregating it. And this was under a load of about 20 actions every second, where every action is a full sort of complex action in JIRA, like fully creating an issue or editing an issue or showing the full search results from a JQL query. Now, buried in this test is actually at least one performance recommendation. We're actually running, we have actually put the JIRA home directory on a solid state drive. And JIRA home, of course, contains the JIRA index. And so allowing the disk that is running the index to be as fast as possible is a great performance tip. Now, we're also doing some other things like running Postgres as the database on the same machine as the JIRA server, which probably isn't the optimal configuration for this environment or your environment. And of course, you'd see different results. Every instance of JIRA is unique in terms of configuration, so your response time may be shorter or longer. But we want to share examples like this so you can compare it to yours. And there's a definite difference in how this performs in JIRA 5 versus JIRA 5.1 versus JIRA 5.0, JIRA 4.4, and previous instances of JIRA. And actually, our own support.atlassian.com is, of course, a JIRA instance. And since our upgrade to JIRA 5.1, we've seen a big change in performance. As we mentioned before, there's a large reduction in the amount of time that JIRA actually spends garbage collection. And you can see it on the graph with the peaks and valleys of the before picture, and how after we're barely spending any time at all over the first several days in production actually doing garbage collection. And that was a big part of the target that the performance team was targeting, because we realized how much that often impacts JIRA performance. And so earlier on, I mentioned that we wanted to keep sharing more data, and so here's another example. We've actually measured how JIRA scales in certain dimensions. And we wanted to show customers the effect that project administration objects have on JIRA performance. Well, our test results show some things pretty clearly. That the number of users in the directory, the number of projects, the number of issue types, and the number of workflows actually have a minimal effect on JIRA performance. That as you increase the numbers of workflows in your system, we don't really see an impact on JIRA performance. While if you look at the number of concurrent users, the number of issues, the number of custom fields and permissions, they do have an impact. JIRA performance is affected as you increase the number of these in your instance. And we want to share this so that you know what to pay attention to as you capacity plan for JIRA. Now, so how did we generate all these performance numbers? How did we get to this particular data? Well, we wanted to simulate a variety of your JIRA configurations. So our performance team actually built a test harness that generates issues, fields, history, comments, workflows, almost every dimension that we've talked about, all to simulate a real JIRA environment. And we know that many of you have wanted to test new hardware configurations, not just on your existing data, but on the data that you might have in 1 or 2 years. So in Atlassian fashion, we don't want to just share our results with you. We actually want to share the tool that we use with you as well. So we've released the JIRA Data Generator on the Atlassian Marketplace. So you can download the JIRA Data Generator, and you can create an instance to model your own configuration and run your own performance tests. You can run that against your company's choice of hardware, your network configuration, your JIRA configuration. We also want to make those same performance tests that we ran available to you as well. So you can test the performance of different configurations and different hardware in your JIRA environment. Now, these new performance tests run on the Grinder. The Grinder is actually an open source Java load testing framework, and you can find it on SourceForge. Now, these are already in addition to the JMeter tests and the performance tests that we've had available for a long time. And actually, recently we've been doing some more performance testing and updating our performance tests. And again, we'll keep publishing those as we change them, so you have what we think are the latest and greatest performance tests that give you different user scenarios and that actually put JIRA under different amounts of load and give you different scenarios to test. And finally, the third thing that we use at Atlassian is actually New Relic to monitor all of our instances. Our goal is to make sure that all the tools that we use for JIRA performance inside of Atlassian are available to you, and that we're open and honest about what we use to measure and monitor and record, so you can see the same things in your environment. We also have some more data to report on our set of customers who have over 200,000 issues. So among that set, here are actually the numbers for the 50th percentile or the median, and the numbers at the 80th percentile. And these are all for customers who had over 200,000 issues in their instance. So while if you remember before, the number of custom fields was actually the largest number of custom fields was 2,700, the median here is actually around 270. So it says of all the customers we've talked to who have over 200,000 issues, about half of them have less than 270 custom fields, about half of them have more than 270 custom fields, with only about 20% of those customers having over 615 custom fields in their instance. Now, all of these numbers are before JIRA 5.1 was released, and naturally customers' instances grow over time, so we expect these numbers to get higher as time goes on. Now, the reason we're providing these is so you can understand where your JIRA instance sits among the largest JIRA instances. Now, this is not just for bragging rights to say, we have more issue types than any other JIRA customer. It's so you can answer questions like, if we decide to keep moving in this direction and we end up with 200 different issue types, is that unusual? Well, looking at the chart, yeah, 200 issue types would be pretty unusual, but 200 projects would actually be pretty common among larger JIRA instances. So again, we wanted to share this data so that you understand more about what other customers are doing with JIRA. Another question that I get asked a lot is actually around database usage in JIRA. What are other people using as their database for JIRA? Well, I actually would have lost a bet on this particular result. I didn't think it would be as evenly split between MySQL and Oracle, though I guess we can relabel these as Oracle option 1 and Oracle option 2, given that Oracle has acquired MySQL. So anyway, just sharing again with you, here's the use across, again, these are the largest JIRA instances that we found. And here's the distribution of databases. So we're going to talk about users, but I first want to ask the audience today, how many users are in your JIRA user base? So across all your instances, what's kind of the total number of unique users that you have in your organization? That's great. We'll leave this up there for a couple of more seconds so we understand. All right. And yeah, it actually looks like we have enterprises here today in the webinar. We had such a large number of registrants. We weren't sure what type of mix of customers we'd have, but definitely here we've got everyone above the 100 mark except for a handful, and some with above 2,000 and even higher than that. So a lot of folks with more than 10,000 as well too. That's great. Well, this is another key area that we've been focused on because a lot of you have expanded JIRA use beyond software teams, or you have very, very large software teams. So you may have even external users in your JIRA instance. You may have customers and clients as well. And so we're seeing more and more customers who have 10,000, and you even saw those examples of over 100,000 users on top of JIRA. So you need a way to manage large numbers of users in JIRA. And of course, we introduced LDAP support for this specific reason. We started off just offering authentication support in LDAP. We moved on to provide full user management. And then, of course, even using JIRA itself as a crowd server for other applications. And as a result, we've actually seen the use of LDAP in JIRA become one of the heaviest used features in JIRA. But while it's a standard and while LDAP is supported by all the major directory servers out there, it's a complex standard, and really almost every customer implements it slightly differently. So in JIRA 5, we actually took the next step and we delivered LDAP troubleshooting in JIRA. So you can help test your configuration and even to troubleshoot problems with individual users. And it takes you through essentially every critical step in connecting to the LDAP server and being able to retrieve the information that JIRA is going to need. Now, this change alone has actually reduced support calls on directory configuration by half. And this means we're really excited about that because that means that customers are able to self-service and get up and running and don't have to call support and move forward. And that's better for everyone. Now, in general, things like user management and administration, they're often overlooked in the headlines or in the press. But we know that the investment that we make behind the scenes in things like this and administration is actually what you've told us is really valuable to you. And that's why we keep investing in it. Now, another great addition to user management that's available in JIRA 5.1 is actually the ability to deactivate a user. So for users who are no longer a part of your organization and you don't want to have to delete them because you want to preserve all the records of what they did in JIRA, but you don't want anyone logging in as that user, and you definitely don't want them to receive email. So in JIRA 5.1, simply by unchecking the active box in a user's profile, you can actually make a user inactive. And as a result, they won't be able to log in, they won't receive email communications, and they don't count as a licensed user. So this is great for a lot of organizations who have a lot of people coming in and leaving the organization. You want a track record of what issues were assigned to them, what work they did in JIRA, but you really don't want them acting as an active user anymore. And so this is an easy way without having to change passwords, without having to do anything else. One click, and you've essentially removed this user's ability to be an active participant in JIRA. And similarly, when a user leaves an organization, in JIRA 5.0, we made it so that you can manage their dashboards and filters more easily. So we gave JIRA admins full control over the ownership of dashboards and filters, so it's really easy to transfer ownership of these at any time. So it's not just adding and removing users that contributes to overall user management, and this feature is actually a great example of that. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Crowd is kind of been the center of user management for JIRA and for Atlassian, designed specifically for enterprises to do user management across all of Atlassian tools. And Crowd's really central to the JIRA story as well. And Atlassian has released a number of important improvements to Crowd recently in version 2.4 and 2.5. So first is actually incremental synchronization between Crowd and JIRA. So only the deltas or the differences are synchronized between Crowd and JIRA, which means if you added one user, we don't need to wait for an entire directory synchronization. Only that one user is going to get synced. Second is Crowd actually provides support for Spring Security 3. And while a lot of customers may not take advantage of them themselves, if you're not doing custom single sign-on integrations, this is going to make it a lot easier for third-party applications to integrate to Crowd as well. And so we're excited about that. And then finally, just like in JIRA 5.1, where we focused on performance and scale, there have been a number of performance improvements that have been included in the latest releases of Crowd. And some of those have actually come from recommendations both in the JIRA and in our Atlassian performance team. And it's interesting because even though Atlassian Enterprise is a new program and it's a new set of offerings, I kind of looked at Crowd as what was really the start of Enterprise, because it was really the first product that we released that was really oriented towards enterprises who were rolling out Atlassian tools across their organization. So now I want to move on and talk a little about scale in terms of using multiple JIRA instances. So our next poll question is, how many instances of JIRA does your organization use? So we'll leave that up for a little while. We have talked with customers before who, in a large organization, you may have multiple clusters or pockets of JIRA. So maybe you have 3 or 4 JIRA instances in your area, but there may be other areas of your business that have even more. So sometimes people have even more JIRA instances than they realize. All right, great. We've got the results in, and so it looks like about half of you have about 1 instance in your organization, and the other half are split across having more. And 10 or more is not that uncommon. We have a really large number of attendees in this webinar today, so this actually represents a pretty large number of large instances or large numbers of instances in JIRA. All right. Well, as we talk about scale, we see this in a lot of JIRA customers that we've talked to. JIRA expands further in a lot of cases, as we mentioned, beyond software teams, and even sometimes beyond technical teams. And you see it often become an enterprise standard for project tracking across different teams, across different business units, across different geographies. And many customers actually deploy multiple JIRA instances to meet the needs of their different teams. So what are some of the reasons customers have actually deployed multiple JIRA instances? Well, some of you actually have a private JIRA instance behind your corporate firewall. That's used entirely by internal employees. And then another JIRA instance that you use to communicate with external customers or clients or partners. At Atlassian, I'm sure you're familiar with jira.atlassian.com, our public issue tracker, and support.atlassian.com, our support site. These are great examples of public-facing instances, while we still have several instances, or JIRA instances, that are internal, that only our internal teams use. Now, another reason is some of you have JIRA instances that are actually in different geographies. So because your organization grew by acquisition or maybe merger, or because JIRA started up in several different business units, or maybe even because of data privacy rules in each country. And some of you have multiple JIRA instances simply because it allows you to configure one instance very differently from another. You want different plugins on each instance, you want different configurations, you want different settings on each instance. And of course, scale. You want a distributed system so you can upgrade each JIRA instance separately and minimize the impact on your overall organization. So you can already do a number of things to help support this. You can use a centralized user management, as we talked about before, of multiple JIRA instances to a single LDAP server or a single Crowd server. And with application links, if you have 2 JIRA instances that are application linked together, you can actually include a gadget from one JIRA instance in the dashboard of another JIRA instance. So if you had several JIRA servers, you could actually build a dashboard which would actually show reports from different JIRA instances and kind of give you the ability to do a roll-up dashboard across your JIRA instances. So you could roll up reporting from 4 different projects onto a single JIRA dashboard, even if they're on 4 different JIRA instances. And very similarly, JIRA 5 did this with activity streams. So you can actually take a single activity stream that shows you activity across multiple JIRA instances. So let's say you work on 4 projects, but they're on 4 different JIRA servers. Here in this example, we've got a corporate project server where we have our finance and HR projects. We've got a customer support instance like support.atlassian.com. We've got our JIRA instance for our development teams who are in Asia Pac. And we've got a JIRA instance where we collaborate with our external partners. And here I've built an activity stream that actually chooses those 4 JIRA instances I want to see, and I've filtered each instance to show just the events I want to see on that instance. And so now you have an activity stream across multiple JIRA instances that just shows the events that you care about. And now, of course, if you have multiple JIRA servers, you often have an issue in one instance that relates to an issue in another instance. I mentioned before that we have JIRA.Atlassian.com, which is our customer-facing issue tracker. Well, when we begin working on an issue that a customer raised on JIRA.Atlassian.com, we often create an issue or multiple issues in our internal issue tracker. Now, as a product manager, I want to make sure our development team gets all the context that you, our customer, has provided on the public issue. And rather than copying or pasting data or pasting a URL, we want to use that same issue linking capability of JIRA that you can use within one instance across instances. And so that's why we introduced remote issue links in JIRA 5.0, and we've even improved them in JIRA 5.1, specifically around the case of JIRA to JIRA issue links. So let me just give you a quick view of this in action. When you create a JIRA issue link, if you have any other JIRA servers application links to your instance, they automatically show up in your server dropdown. And after you select an instance, you get your recent issues history on that instance. Even if it's a different instance, you see the issues you last accessed on that instance. And you can choose whether or not you want the link to be reciprocal. So whether should the link be one-way or two-way in terms of the linking relationship. And this might be useful because maybe you are linking out to a public instance of JIRA, and you don't want your customers or clients seeing the link to your internal JIRA instance, so you may choose only one way. And we've also added in JIRA 5.1 a lot of powerful search capabilities. You can search any instance for the issue that you're looking for, either using text or full JQL support, and that even includes autocomplete, to find issues on other JIRA instances. So this is a great example of what we're trying to do to make end-user interaction with multiple JIRA instances as easy as possible. So with JIRA to JIRA issue link, we've basically made any number of JIRA servers all linkable from one JIRA instance. So this is another way that we've made it really easy to work with more than one JIRA instance. And we're going to continue to invest in ways to give customers more benefit from multiple JIRA instances. So we're investing in what we call federation. And so in combination, our improvements for single server performance that we talked about in JIRA 5.1 and our investment in federation is actually designed to help customers scale. And this is our direction for scaling JIRA in the future. The combination of more scalable single instances with the ability to connect and manage multiple JIRA instances. And we'll keep improving the end user experience across multiple instances with capabilities like the ability to search more than one JIRA instance at once. So our final poll question is actually, I'm curious, how many of you actually use JIRA to collaborate outside your organization, where you have external customers or vendors or clients or people outside of your organization who are actually using JIRA? All right, looks like results are mostly in. And this actually matches pretty much what we've seen in past surveys as well too, which is about half and half. And this is it matches exactly what we've seen in the past, which is about half of our customers actually actively use JIRA to communicate with clients or partners or development partners or to track issues and to let your customers raise issues with you as well. So that's great. I want to move on and talk about what's next. So what's next for JIRA? Well, our investment's focused in several key areas, and I want to highlight three. One is around JIRA administration, the path we started in JIRA 4.4 to improve the administration experience and reduce complexity. And then following on what we've done in JIRA 5.0 and 5.1, we want to improve our core experience for end users for finding, creating, editing, and working with issues. And we're going to continue to invest in performance and federation. As I mentioned, focusing on improving that end user experience for customers who have multiple JIRA instances. Now I'd like to show you some specifics in each area, so think of these as coming attractions, though some of these are actually available on Marketplace today, and I'll make sure that's clear. So one I'm really excited about, if you've ever asked yourself, why isn't this field showing up on this issue, or why is this user not receiving a notification, or why can this user see this issue? the JIRA admin helper can actually answer these questions for you. So here, you can see exactly why or why not a field is showing up. In this particular case, the assignee field isn't showing up because it's missing from the field configuration. And so if you're an admin and you have the JIRA admin helper installed, you're going to have some additional actions that only admins can see on the view issue page, or on the create or edit screen as well. So you can ask, why am I not seeing this field on this screen? The other is for notification helper. So here, Fred isn't receiving this notification. Well, because he's not the reporter, he's not the assignee, and he's not a watcher on the issue. He doesn't meet any of the criteria. And you can even see exactly why or why not a user can see an issue. In this particular case, Fred can see this issue because he's got the browse project permission, because he's a member, as you can see here with the little green check mark, of the user's project role. So I think if you're a JIRA admin, this is a must-have. This is actually available for free on Marketplace right now, and it's compatible with JIRA 5.0 and up. So I'd highly recommend any JIRA admin who's ever asked any of those questions, especially, why isn't this field showing up on the screen? Why can this user see this issue? Why can't this user see this issue? This is a great way to actually get a one-click diagnostic to show you exactly what's at play with permission schemes, notification schemes, and of course field configurations, and all the other rules in JIRA as well too. Another cool new plugin is actually the JIRA workflow sharing plugin. You can actually export a workflow from one JIRA instance to another. We also have some sample workflow bundles on Marketplace you can pull down and start using in your JIRA instance. There's a great number of uses here. You can even copy a workflow from one of your JIRA instances to another JIRA instance. Or again, you can actually use workflows that other JIRA administrators may have uploaded to the Marketplace because they're sharing their best practices for how they do particular workflows in JIRA. And again, this is a free plugin that you can download and use today. Now, if you use a staging server for JIRA, which almost all customers I've talked to do, we've added something to make the process easier for you, which is a global switch for outgoing and incoming mail. So you often don't want your staging server sending email to users when you're just testing a new configuration. And you don't want your staging server fetching email from mailboxes and testing either. So we've done a number of things. There's now a button to enable outgoing mail globally, as well as incoming mail. And you can automatically enable or disable mail with a command line option when you start up JIRA. And you can automatically enable or disable mail during an XML import. So if you're pulling in a production export, which of course probably has mail services turned on, during that XML import, you can simply choose the option to turn off mail services as well. And we've made the status clearly visible in each of the pages where you configure mail options. So it's really clear if you've enabled or disabled this. And you'll see this in a future version of JIRA. We're running short on time, so I'm going to skip over this next one pretty quickly, which is if you haven't used the JIRA configuration tool, which lets you set a lot of the command line options, we drastically improved it in 5.0, and there's even more improvements coming with web proxy and SSL support, a number of enhancements there. So I think for folks who use that, you're going to see it getting better and better. And so those were all samples of changes for JIRA administration. Switching gears to the end user experience, I want to show you one exciting change that you'll see in our JIRA Early Access program for JIRA 5.2, and that's a new user experience for the JIRA Issue Navigator. We think for your end users, we've just made creating search much easier, saving a search as a filter much easier, and search results now return without a page reload. I really can't do this feature justice with a screenshot, but I can say I think you'll be really excited about the results when you get to see it in the JIRA Early Access program. And we're going to continue doing performance improvements as well. So we're always on the lookout for ways to improve JIRA performance. And just one example of many things that you'll see coming from us was a performance improvement specifically with memory usage, where we found that for each plugin in JIRA, there was a way for us to reduce its memory footprint. And since so many of JIRA's features are actually done in plugins, that actually has a multiplier. And so with one change, we were able to cut 90 megs or more, depending on the number of plugins in your environment, from the memory footprint for JIRA. And finally, something I know a lot of enterprise customers have been excited about is that you've told me you have a lot of inactive projects or inactive issues, and you'd like to archive them. And because of retention requirements, you don't want to just use tape backups, and it isn't worth the hassle when you want to restore maybe an old backup. what you really wanted is you wanted to archive. And so archiving is actually going to be our first enterprise add-on. So similar to the way that Greenhopper and Bonfire are general add-ons for JIRA, this add-on is being specifically developed with enterprise customers in mind. This will be a new product offered by Atlassian. It's already under development, and you should expect to see us release this offering in about the first half of next year. Now, if you're interested in JIRA archiving, we'd love your feedback on this new product, and Edwin, the product manager for archiving, would love to share some more information with you. And so I'd love to get Edwin 60 emails from interested customers because I've talked to at least 60 of you over the last year who are interested in archiving. So if you're not already in touch with Edwin, please send Edwin an email and he'll share some more information around archiving with you. So definitely don't hesitate to reach out to Edwin. So we're actually running late on time, and there were a couple of things I was going to cover quickly. But again, today we only covered a small part of what an enterprise can take advantage of in new versions of JIRA. We didn't talk about capabilities like the new REST APIs or search change history or the new JIRA issue collector. And we didn't talk about all the different ways the JIRA community is growing. But I want to make sure we get to some of those questions. Ken, I think we're pretty much at time, but is it okay if we take 5 or 10 minutes to answer some questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a number of questions that have come in that I'll try to, we probably won't be able to get to all of them, but I'll try to pull out some of the common themes and threads here. And let's start with, there's a question about the 200,000 user or issue limit being removed, and whether or not is there a new limit that's being published?
Oh, great question. We touched on this briefly before, but with the 200,000 issue limit before, we were trying to provide customers with an idea of how far JIRA can scale. And clearly, customers proved that our limit was far too low and that it was possible to scale much higher. And what we want to do now is provide more guidance, more sizing guides, more examples of production instances, and some tools so you can determine the right limits for your JIRA instance. The other part of it was that it often caused a support limitation. People thought that we won't support you if you have more than 200,000 issues, and often if you called support, they would say, well, you have more than 200,000, so our recommendation is splitting up JIRA instances. Well, we're gonna service customers and help them with performance problems. Though there will be times where if your JIRA instance gets to a certain size and we've exhausted all our performance options, and if you're seeing massive performance problems, we still may recommend that at that point in time you split instances. But we don't believe there's a single number or hard limit or boundary where you have to, because we've seen customers with hardware and with configuration take it much further. But really, really good question.
All right, cool. So another couple of questions that come in just around the roadmap, around federation and archiving and whatnot. Basically, kind of what are the next steps as far as some of those features or some of those projects?
So with federation and archive, I think we touched a little bit on federation because we've done a lot of this already, but we want to do more. And so specifically, the next things you should see from us are around end-user federation. So things like, how do I copy or move an issue between two different JIRA instances? How can I, if I'm on a single instance, easily navigate between my multiple instances? Or as an end user, how do I do one search and get all the results across multiple JIRA instances? So we definitely have plans to do more in that area. And then JIRA archiving, I think we're really excited about that. Like I mentioned, we're starting development, and you should see something from that in the first half of 2013.
Cool. Okay, a couple of questions have also come in around high availability and clustering and kind of what we have available there.
Yeah, absolutely. There's actually a enterprise guide on high availability and failover for JIRA, and so if you're interested in that, definitely check it out. I've had the opportunity to talk to a number of customers who, that in the sort of disaster recovery and failover world, they focus on RPO and RTO, recovery time objectives and recovery point objectives, and we've seen some customers actually achieve really great results there, partially because JIRA starts up relatively quickly. And so I think a lot of the keys has to do with finding a way to figure out, how do you make your personal file replication solution work with JIRA and work with the JIRA index, as well as finding a way if you're trying to do WAN replication, use a database solution as well. And anyway, I can barely touch the surface of this on the webinar, but it's something I'm really interested personally, and that's why we put together the enterprise guide for failover. So definitely check that one out. Good question. What else do we have out there?
Cool. A few more. There's a few more specific ones. I'm going to try to take some of the ones that are a little bit more broadly focused. But a question about the performance figures. Do those figures include Greenhopper in the setup?
Oh yes, actually a number of them do, and wow, I'm really glad someone asked this because I left out a really important point on support.atlassian.com and some of our other instances. I think we've seen some of the biggest performance impacts on Greenhopper, and some of this is because, of course, of the new Greenhopper. It's really exciting that actually today we've launched Greenhopper 6.0, and a lot of the work that we've done over the last year in Greenhopper has actually been not just usability and not just adding some amazing new features for Agile, but have also been performance oriented. And so when you take that in combination with JIRA 5.1, we've seen some big gains, and some of the performance improvements that we put into JIRA actually specifically make a bigger impact in Greenhopper than they do in general JIRA as well. So I think customers should definitely see a lot of great performance benefits in Greenhopper as well. Great question.
Cool. Yeah. Just another follow-up on the performance side of things. Was maybe can you provide a little bit of clarification on throughput? There were some questions about whether it was number of concurrent browsing users, or whether it was response time for browsing tickets. Like, what exactly do we mean by throughput?
Yeah, that's a really good question to clarify. The throughput specifics are essentially the idea that imagine that you were trying to view 1,000 issues, along with create 1,000 issues, along with edit 1,000 issues, along with perform 1,000 searches. Sort of imagine all those aggregated, and essentially JIRA 5.1 can get through all those tasks in 40% less time than previous. Is sort of one way to look at it. The math doesn't quite work perfectly, or maybe it can get through 40% more of those. So in the same amount of time that JIRA 4.4, it could get to 1,400 each of those transactions. Would be a simple way to explain it. But basically, what it really does mean that you should be able to handle a higher concurrency load, and that each. But we also see each individual transaction finishing faster as well. So there's some performance tests we run purely for throughput. There are others that we look at purely for response time, and we've seen improvements in both.
Cool. Okay. A couple more here, and then I think we'll wrap it up. Question about reindexing and whether or not basically reindexing without the JIRA not usable.
Oh yeah. So this is one I've talked to a lot of customers about, especially at Summit. I can't reveal anything today, but it's definitely something that we're looking at and working on. So this is not just something for future roadmap, but this is something that's an active, not just investigation, but development area inside of JIRA today. And so I think when we get to unveil the covers on that one, I think it's something that JIRA customers will be really excited about.
Cool. Okay. Question from Ram here about enterprise site licenses, whether or not we have any plans to address those.
Oh yeah, that's another actually good question. I've talked to a handful of customers about this one as well. It's something we're investigating right now, especially for customers who have large numbers of Atlassian licenses. We're talking with customers who have 20 or 30 different Atlassian instances in their organization. And if you're interested in this, actually, I'd recommend you reach out to Josh at Atlassian.com. So it's Josh Wold, and he's been working with a lot of our customers on this. And so, again, JOSH at Atlassian.com. So really good question.
Cool. Well, the majority of the questions that are remaining are quite specific. And what we may do is there's just way too many of them to get through everybody. So what we'll do is we'll do our best to write these up and publish them along with the recording in the next couple of days. And then we'll try to get back to all the folks that actually asked the question in a timely manner. But that's probably going to do it for our first enterprise webinar.
That's great. Hey, Ken, thanks for wrangling all those questions. Yeah, we really did get a stream of them today, and apologies that I ran a little bit over time, folks, but hopefully this information has been really useful. I want to just leave you with kind of a reminder of the latest releases of each of the products. Don't forget to check out JIRA 5.1 if you haven't already. The new Greenhopper 6.0 launched today, and of course new versions of Bonfire and Crowd. And especially since all of you on the phone, given the survey results, look like you're larger organizations, check out our enterprise resources online. And most of all, once again, not just from Ken and myself, but from the entire JIRA team, development, QA, marketing, design, support, product management, really everyone, for all that you do in terms of giving us feedback on JIRA, because we really appreciate it, and please keep the feedback coming. And there's going to be an exit survey at the end. So please take that so we can tailor these webinars to you and what you as enterprise customers want, so these get better and better in the future. All right, thanks again, everybody, and have a great rest of your day, night, morning, or wherever you find yourself. Cheers.